Namaskar. Now today, like before, we continue with our topic of biopsychology, the science which has been developed by Anand Murthy ji, and we will see how this lymphatic system now. We have already discussed several other issues concerning biopsychology, especially in the last discussion we had discussed cells of the body as well as the nerve cells, and also we have discussed brain and how brain functions in conjunction with our spinal cord. And today we will be discussing a new subject which is integrated part of biopsychology, and that is the lymphatic system. And this lymphatic system of late has been found to be very important in the medical science, in the field of medical science. This is a kind of a new thing, recent development recognized in the medical field, especially after the two specific diseases, cancer and AIDS, came to be known, and people have suffered because of this, and that is why lymph has come into prominence. Still, the complete knowledge about lymph is still in a developing stage. It's very primitive. So we will try to understand what exactly we find this lymph and its connection to biopsychology. Now we will go and try to understand how lymph is produced. So you see, जब हम लोग खाना खाते हैं तो जो भी आहार हम लोग लेते हैं वो आहार पाचक रस के साथ मिश्रित होने पर रस जातीय पदार्थों में बदल जाता है. Now, from the beginning, let me clear that we will discuss about the subject partly in Hindi and partly in English, so as to make it more understandable to the audience, because the subject is of medical science and also concerning our biology, and also concerning spirituality, and how this lymph has a relationship with the development of our brain, our health and immunity. So there are so many diverse subjects which are related, and therefore we will continue to speak in Hindi. हम लोग हिंदी में भी बात करेंगे और अंग्रेजी में भी बात करेंगे, जिससे बात समझ में आए. तो हम लोग कह रहे थे कि लिंक बनता कैसे है, तो हमें एक शरीर विज्ञान का एक जनरल आइडिया हमें लेना है. तो पहली चीज़ तो ये है कि लिम्फ जो है वो एक क्रूशियल प्रोडक्ट है, एक वेरी क्रिटिकल प्रोडक्ट है, और इसका प्रोडक्शन जो है वो वाइटैलिटी से होता है. पहले तो हम लोग एक समझ लें कि लिम्फ को अंग्रेजी में लिम्फ कहते हैं, तो हम लोग उसे संस्कृत में प्राण रस कहते हैं. प्राण रस माने वाइटल फ्लूइड. इसका एक और नाम है लसिका. लसिका बिकॉज it flows, and also it softens the mind of the person. When the lymph gets into the brain, it creates a softening effect on the mind with the help of the nerve cells and nerve fiber. The neurons help. Now this is something quite new in terms of medical science, because as far as spirituality is concerned, spiritual science is concerned, lymph is not a new thing. In spiritual science, lymph has been known with its good effects. In fact, lymph is connected to human evolution also, the evolution of other animals also. So we will come to that part later. Let us understand first how lymph is produced. So as I said in the beginning कि हमारा जो भोजन है, जब भोजन पाचक तत्व के साथ मिलकर रस बना देता है, रस संजात वस्तुएं बन जाती हैं, और जो उसका वेस्ट प्रोडक्ट है वो हमारे यूरिन के माध्यम से और अदरवाइज वो एक्सक्रीट हो जाता है, बाहर निकल जाता है, निर्गत हो जाता है। और ये रस से फिर उसका जो सार तत्व है वो रक्त में रूपांतरित हो जाता है, ब्लड बन जाता है। अच्छा, फिर ब्लड से मेद या बसा या फैट बन जाता है, और फैट जो है वो आगे चलकर हमारे बोन्स में, अस्थि में रूपांतरित हो जाता है। फिर अस्थि से वो मज्जा माने बोन मैरो में ट्रांसफॉर्म हो जाता है, और अंततः शुक्र में ट्रांसफर होता है। तो ट्रांसफर जब शुक्र में हो गया, तो जिसे हम शुक्र कहते हैं, सामान्य से शुक्र का अर्थ सामान्य रूप से भाषा की दृष्टि से शुक्र को हम लोग सीमेन समझते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ शुक्र का अर्थ है, शुक्र का एक प्राइमरी जो स्टेज है वो है लिम्फ। एक्चुअली शुक्र जिसे हम लोग सीमेन कहते हैं, वो उसकी 3 प्राइमरी स्टेजेस होती हैं, 3 स्टेजेस में वो रहता है। वो स्टेजेस हैं लिम्फ, स्पर्मेटोजोआ एंड सेमिनल फ्लूइड। ये लिम्फ, स्पर्मेटोजोआ और सेमिनल फ्लूइड तीनों को मिलाकर ही हम शुक्र कहते हैं। और शुक्र का एक ट्रांसफॉर्म फॉर्म जिसे सीमेन कहते हैं, वो होता है जब हमारी जो सेक्स ग्लैंड्स हैं वो जब एक्टिवेट हो जाती हैं, तब जो लिम्फ है या और जो सेमिनल फ्लूइड है उसी से सीमेन बन जाता है। तो सीमेन निर्गत हो जाता है, वो निकल जाता है शरीर से, क्योंकि सीमेन से ही प्रजनन होता है। रिप्रोडक्शन का सारा सिस्टम जो है आगे चलकर वो उसी से संबंधित है। तो ये जो हमारा लिम्फ है, ये लिम्फ क्या है? लिम्फ एक्चुअली इज a kind of a white fluid, and because it has no red pigments, therefore it contains it contains all the qualities, all the ingredients of the blood, but it does not have the red pigment, and it is a kind of a watery substance, and it has been, as I said, it has been derived from the blood, and it has been refined, modified and processed from blood. Now, and it is refined and modified by the lymph gland, regional lymph glands. Now, hitherto our knowledge of the lymph gland has been such that our lymph system has been confined to the body other than the brain. But recent medical research has confirmed that the lymph vessels are also present in the brain. So brain is also, so the entire body has got lymph glands, lymph vessels and tissues which also carry the lymphoid system. Now these lymph, first we come to lymphatics. Lymphatics describes lymphatics is a term which describes the circulatory system of lymph. Then we have the lymph glands. The lymph glands are scattered all around the body, and they are grouped in certain areas. For example, they are in the armpits, in the groins, in the elbows and knees. And in 3 or 4 more important groups are there, especially brain, neck, chest and abdomen. And then they have lymphoid tissues in various other organs like liver, spleen. Then we have gut, tonsil and adenoids. So the whole lymph system is there in the whole in our body. And as I said, lymphatic vessels run parallel to the arteries, and the arteries carry the blood and lymph vessels carry the lymph. Now the whole system of lymph glands, lymphatics and the scattered lymphoid tissues is called lymphoid system or lymphatic system, whatever you call it. In modern science, the lymphatic or lymphoid system is not regarded as a part of the glandular system, although in spiritual aspect, in spiritual science, In yogic science, in biopsychology, lymph is a part of the glandular system. That we will discuss in more detail later. But there is one fundamental point which is important, that lymphoid system, although is not recorded as as glandular system in the modern medical science, but although it's the heart of this lymphoid system is in the heart, in the thymus gland. And thymus gland is the endocrine gland. So despite that, it is not considered in the medical science, because it's still developing, and understanding about lymphatic system is still in its infancy, it is growing. But there are certain functions which lymph performs, and actually as we see in our modern understanding कि हमारा जो भी ज्ञान का तरीका है, जो प्राप्त करने का तरीका है, जो मेडिकल साइंस का तरीका है, वो एक एनालिटिकल, सीक्वेंशियल, रैशनल तरीका है. उसमें हम एनालाइज करते हैं चीज़ों को, एनालिटिकल तरीके से हम चीज़ों को जानने की कोशिश करते हैं. इसकी अपनी महत्ता है, इसकी अपनी इंपॉर्टेंस है, ये हम लोग जानते हैं. उसके साथ साथ ही जो पैरेलली हमारा जो स्पिरिचुअल प्रोसेस है, वो उससे विपरीत सिंथेटिक प्रोसेस है. यहाँ पर इंटीग्रेट किया जाता है चीज़ों को. यहाँ पर इंट्यूशनल आइडियाज के माध्यम से प्रोग्रेस की जाती है, समझने की चेष्टा की जाती है. ना जो इंट्यूशन है, उसका स्कोप जो है वो बहुत लार्ज है, बहुत बड़ा है, बहुत व्यापक है. एनालिटिकल तरीके से हम चीज़ों को छिन्न भिन्न करके उनके टुकड़ों में बांटकर समझने की चेष्टा तो कर लेते हैं, लेकिन बहुत सी चीज़ें एनालिटिकल प्रोसेस में दब जाती हैं. बहुत सी चीज़ें एनालिटिकल प्रोसेस में जो अपनी सच्चाई है उससे दूर हट जाती हैं. तो इसको हमें समझना होगा. तो जो हमारी स्पिरिचुअल प्रोसेस है, नॉलेज को गेन करने की जो प्रोसेस है, वो जो प्रोसेस है वो है सिंथेटिक प्रोसेस, और उसमें इंट्यूशन का बहुत बड़ा एस्पेक्ट है. नाउ हम ये भी जानते हैं कि वर्तमान हमारा जो जीवन है, वर्तमान हमारी जो शिक्षा प्रणाली है, उसमें अभी तक हम लोगों ने इस सिंथेटिक इंट्यूशनल प्रोसेसेस को अधिक महत्ता नहीं दी है, क्योंकि हमारी सारी जो शिक्षा प्रणाली है वो एनालिटिकल एस्पेक्ट पर ही है. जैसा कि हम लोग जानते हैं कि हमारा जो हेमिस्फीयर है उसके दो पार्ट हैं, एक लेफ्ट एंड राइट. तो जो पार्ट हमारा एनालिटिकल है, वर्बल है, जो रैशनल है, जो सीक्वेंशियल है, वो पार्ट जो है उसी पर हमारा ज़्यादा जोर है. और जो हमारा पार्ट आर्टिस्टिक है, सिंथेटिक है, इंट्यूशनल है, उसको हमने इस एनालिटिकल पार्ट से दबा दिया है. उसके कारण हम लोगों का जो सारा नॉलेज गेन करने का तरीका है वो थोड़ा थ्रॉटल्ड हो गया है. सो हमें इस बात को बहुत अच्छी तरह समझना होगा. इस डिफरेंशिएशन को अगर हम नहीं समझेंगे तो हमारा जो ज्ञान है वो परिपूर्ण नहीं होगा. और अभी हम जो सब चर्चा कर रहे हैं, ये चर्चाएं ऐसी हैं जिनमें कि हम लोगों ने देखा है कि जैसे जैसे समय बीता है तो लिम्फ के संबंध में जो सामान्य ज्ञान था, पहले तो लोग ये मानने को तैयार नहीं थे कि लिम्फ ब्रेन के अंदर, लिम्फेटिक वेसल्स ब्रेन के अंदर भी हैं. अब ये अच्छी तरह से प्रूव हो गया है कि लिम्फेटिक वेसल्स जो हैं हमारे ब्रेन के अंदर भी हैं, और उनका बहुत इंपॉर्टेंस है, बिकॉज उसके बगैर वो इम्यून सिस्टम, हम लोग जो ब्रेन में इम्यून सिस्टम है उसको हम नहीं समझ पाते. तो हम लोगों ने देखा है कि अब हमको समझना है कि ये जो लिम्फ सिस्टम है इसके मेजर फंक्शंस क्या हैं. तो हम लोग मेजर फंक्शंस को थोड़ा समझने की चेष्टा करते हैं. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट फंक्शन तो लिम्फॉइड सिस्टम का ये है कि ये लिम्फ को ट्रांसपोर्ट करता है थ्रू आउट द बॉडी टू द ब्लड फॉर सर्कुलेशन. दिस इज द नंबर 1 पॉइंट. नंबर 2 पॉइंट इज this is the defense mechanism of the body against foreign intruders like dust, viruses and bacteria. And the third point, which is important as far as lymphoid system is concerned, is that this helps us, this helps the body in recognizing those cells which are our own cells, self or non-self. That means those which are not ours. Those have come from outside, like viruses, bacteria, and those which are foreign intruders. Now, apart from this, there are two more important aspects that have to be understood. And the other aspect is that the lymph per se is the food of the brain. This is another function which lymph performs. And the fifth one is that lymph actually is the precursor of all the hormones that are produced within the human body. That means all endocrine glands, the hormones which is produced in them, or all regional glands, subglands, the hormones which is produced, the raw material comes from the lymph. So lymph is the fundamental thing through which the hormones are produced. So this is very important aspect. Now it is important that lymph is produced from the blood in the peripheral tissues. Now a small quantity of small blood capillaries in the tissues, we are able to filter about 20 liters of fluid. This is the lymph. And this much of 20 liters of this fluid, which is the lymph, is produced per day in the intercellular spaces. Out of which 17 liters of this fluid with all its electrolytes goes back into the bloodstream through the veins. Through venous blood of the tissues goes back there. Now the remaining 3 liters along with the filtered proteins remains in the intercellular spaces. And these protein molecules are too large to be absorbed through the small pores in the walls of the venous capillaries. So these 3 liter contains the protein part. Now the remaining 3 liters in the tissue with its protein contents must be continuously removed. Otherwise, lot of problems can occur. Protein is one of our most vital, most essential ingredient of human chemistry. And therefore the body has to conserve this protein. So how do we do that? The proteins are required. So this fluid remains there because of the excess protein, and there is no other route besides the lymphatic channels called lymphatics, through which the excess of protein can return to the circulatory system. Now, so protein must go back into the circulation, but when protein has to go back, and this 3 liter which has been filtered, out of that we have to ensure that the intruders, if there are any, the dust that we inhale through the lungs must also get out. If there are any viruses or bacteria present, that must get out. Now protein is a very vital ingredient of the body. Every cell needs it. The cell's skeleton, structure and shape is maintained by the protein. Protein also helps in making a complex of iron, calcium and manganese, and in the blood by forming a complex with them. So this is how it helps in transporting the protein. Now protein is made out of the amino acids molecules, and they are used by our endocrine glands, namely the thyroid, parathyroid and pituitary gland. Now this protein is used for the manufacture of hormones of these glands, these endocrine glands, the thyroid, parathyroid and pituitary glands. Now in the protein that is filtered in the tissues, it is readily removed by the lymphatics, and if it does not happen, then there will be swelling of the tissues, which is called as oedema. Now apart from transporting the proteins from the tissues to the circulation, lymph also transports the fat, which is actually produced in the gastrointestinal tract, which is actually absorbed from the diet that we take. The food that we take is absorbed and it is converted into fat, and this fat must also be removed and must also be transported along with this. Now the cell wall that we are talking, we talked of cells, skeleton and the structure and shape. But the cell wall is actually made up of fat. So fat is used for the exchange of various nutrients that are there. Now some cells have some special components for specialized functions. For example, brain cells need this fat to work as a conducting medium. It has certain conducting properties for the propagation of the nerve impulses. Now some endocrine glands utilize fat to synthesize their hormones. Now we have seen that our subject has also includes understanding of hormones in relation to lymph. So we have seen that there are basically two types of hormones. One is the hormone which is produced manufactured using the proteins, and which is called peptide hormone. And the second category of hormone is the one which is produced from the fat, and that is called steroidal hormones. Now these two types of hormones, some hormones which are produced, which are utilized by the hormones which are produced from the endocrine glands, they utilize fat to synthesize their hormones, the steroidal hormones. Now such hormones which are which are used by adrenal and sex glands, these steroidal hormones are produced from fat. So we see that although lymphoid system, as we talked earlier, is not considered a part of the hormonal glandular system, but without lymph, the fat from the lymph, the fat which is transported by the lymph, the hormones of these endocrine glands cannot be produced. So similarly, we have seen, as far as the protein is concerned, the protein hormones also, likewise, parathyroid, thyroid and pituitary gland, the hormones secreted from those glands are produced from the protein which is transported from the tissues to the glands, to these endocrine glands. Now, second aspect of lymph is its flow. Now, the flow of lymph is very, very important. Now, unlike our blood, which is pumped by our heart under pressure, the lymphatic glands, lymphatic vessels do not have the heart. The flow of lymph is sustained by the movement of the body, by the contraction of the muscles, by the exercises that we do, by the physical movement of the body that we do. So it is important that we need the flow of lymph to take place, because like blood, lymph is one of the most vital substances in our body, and in the absence of lymph we cannot think of the existence. The life cannot survive without lymph. So we need to have an efficient and competent system of channels for the flow of these of lymph. Now we know that there is a network of channels in all tissues ultimately, which open up in one of the main channels in the chest, running along the either side of the spine, and they are called thoracic duct or the lymphatic duct. Now it is in one of these ducts that the ultimately the channels drain out. Now through these channels, that we talked of, the thoracic duct or the lymphatic duct, which open in the big veins in the root of the neck, the lymph is poured into the bloodstream. Now the lymph that is being poured into the bloodstream, the blood that flows through the arteries is at high pressure because of the pumping by the heart. Whereas the lymphatic vessels, the flow of lymph is at a very, very low pressure, 1/10 of, or one maybe much lower than the pressure at which the blood is flowing. So we need to pump it through venous openings only. We cannot directly get into the capillary to enter the arteries of the blood. So we find that all tissues have lymphatic channels. Earlier we did not think that the brain has the lymphatic channels, but now it is recognized that medical science also has accepted that yes, there are lymphatic channels in the brain. So spinal cord, brain, bones, and then deeper parts of the nerves and some parts of the skin and muscles, we have lymphatic channels. Now these tissues also have some minute channels called perilymphatics. Now circulation of lymph is of paramount importance for recycling of the most important nutrients as well as for the dynamics of the fluid exchange, because if the protein is not removed, then dynamics fails, and then that creates problem. So we have understood that although the lymph that flows compared to the blood is very, very small, the flow is 120 millimeter per hour, which is very, very little compared to the blood. But this lymph flow can also be increased through exercise, through certain exercises. We can increase it to a much larger extent, to maybe 5 times or maybe 15 times, depending upon the kind of exercises we adopt and kind of physical activity that do. Now, when we come to this particular aspect, then we realize that that this lymph has been there in our evolutionary process. If you look at the monkeys, for example, they also have very developed lymphatic system. This lymphatic system helps them in ensuring that they are able to jump. So much of their lymphatic energy, much of the vitality that they gain from the lymph is spent in jumping. And unlike monkeys, the cows have also a developed lymphatic system. Now the cow, because it produces milk and produces a large amount of milk, it does not run so fast. So its lymphatic system is, they are able to produce more milk compared to deer, which runs faster. Also, although it has also got a developed lymphatic system, it also produces milk, but very little compared to the cows. The cows after they give birth to their calves, then their movement becomes very slow. So unlike monkeys, deer and other carnivorous animals also have that, like tigers and other animals also have developed lymphatic system, but because they are carnivorous animals, therefore their lymphatic system, that way that their lymph is consumed because of the heat, because of the carnivorous food that they eat, their food being of non-vegetarian origin. Therefore the lymph that is produced is consumed because of the high heat generated by the carnivorous animals. And that is why the brain of the carnivorous animals is less developed compared to the vegetarian, the granivorous animals. This is another aspect, that lymph also helps in the development of the brain faculties. So as we see in the animal world, the carnivorous animals may be clever but are not intelligent, like the elephant, like other animals like the monkey or the cow. Now these animals have the possibility of taking up a spiritual practice also at a later date, maybe as the development advances and human society gets transformed from physico-psychic to psychic level. As more and more psychic entities, more and more psychic development, more and more artistic development, more and more humanistic development takes place in the mind of the human beings. then we will find that this aspect of animals, the developed animals who have a lymphatic system, also start, and vegetarian, those who are granivorous animals, they take to spiritual practice. Now this is something very futuristic, but then these are the possibilities which exist. Now we come to the lymph system, and this is where we are very important point that we want to ensure, we want to make, that lymphatic pump's activity, flow is enhanced by contraction of the movements of the parts of the body, like compression, bending, twisting, and arterial pulsation, and also respiratory movement of the chest and lungs also enhance pumping effect. So the flow of the lymphatic system is increased as we go along this process. Now in Ananda Marg system of education, in Ananda Marg system of sadhana, we have seen that there are certain asanas, which are asanas and yogic postures. They are sets of exercises that make one feel relaxed and composed. They have widespread effect on the body and mind, and then thus justify our behavior by nurturing certain qualities. They do this by enhancing lymph formation and lymph flow. So this is a very important aspect, that the asana part, and the exercise and the yogic postures, they help in the lymph formation and lymph flow. And they also nourish the brain cells and also the hormones, and they are the major player in human behavior. This is a very important aspect where we must make emphasis, because biopsychology, when we are discussing lymph as a major player in human behavior through control of the hormonal secretion, because this becomes the precursor, the raw material for the hormones that is produced by all the glands and subglands, all the endocrine glands and all the regional subglands. They produce, they secrete hormones, and the hormones are manufactured or produced as a result of the lymph. Lymph becomes the raw material for these two things. So the two most important ingredients of our human body are and necessary for our existence are blood and lymph. Now we come to certain exercises that the Ananda Marg system teaches. Now we come to those exercises, and before we come to those exercises, let me explain you that in Ananda Marg the exercises have been taught in a very, very detailed manner. Now the first aspect that I want to discuss in relation to increasing the lymph flow and lymph formation is the dance practices, the 3 dance practices that Ananda Marg is teaching to its disciples and to the common public. And they have a intimate relationship with lymph formation and lymph flow. So first is the Lalit Marmik. Now this Lalit Marmik dance which we are talking, Lalit Marmik is a dance which was actually invented by Parvati ji, the spouse of Shiva. Shiv ki jo patni hai Parvati, उन्होंने ललित मार्मिक नाम के डांस को बनाया. It is called Lalit Marmik because it creates a feeling of lashe or softness in the mind of the people who practice Lalit Marmik. Now, how does it happen? Now, when Lalit Marmik dance is performed, it was observed then that the lymphatic vessels soften or contract. As a result of the contraction of the lymphatic vessels, mind becomes soft. So softer feelings are created in the mind. कोमल भावनाएं मन के अंदर जागृत हो जाती हैं. तो ललित मार्मिक नृत्य करने से मन के अंदर लास्य पैदा होता है, सॉफ्टनेस पैदा होती है. Because it creates softness, and it happens because of the contraction of the lymphatic vessels. Therefore, this dance promotes health. The other dance form that has been taught to in Anand Marg is the Tandem Dance. Now, what happens in Tandem Dance? Tandem Dance involves lots of jumping. Now, as a result of Tandem Dance, because the name Tandem comes from Tandu. Tandu is the precursor of Tandul, from which the rice, which is the name of the rice in Sanskrit, Tandul. Now it is called Tandul because जब ढेंकी में राइस को हम लोग पीटते हैं राइस निकालने के लिए धान से, तो राइस जंप करता है. बिकॉज राइस जंप करता है इसलिए उसको तंडुल कहा जाता है. In Tandem practice also, the man jumps. Therefore, since it is based on the theory of Tandu, therefore from Tandu root, Tandem has come. So Tandem is another practice which helps in creating energy and energetic vibrations and invigorates the human body. This happens because of the vibration that the jumping creates in the human body, in the lymphatic vessels. As a result of the vibration of the lymphatic vessels, human mind develops manliness. मनुष्य के मन के अंदर साहस, शौर्य, वीरता की भावना पैदा होती है. इसलिए तांडव डांस से मनुष्य का हृदय विशाल भी होता है और मजबूत होता है, साहसी हो जाता है. So therefore, this particular dance form, the second dance form, is the Tandem dance form which Anand Marg is treating for helping in the increasing the flow and formation of lymph. The third dance form that Anand Marg is teaching to common public, especially to women, is the Kaushiki Dance. This is also useful for men, but this particular dance form has been invented by Sri Anand Murti ji for the welfare of women of the world. Now, the specialty of this dance form is that it is a cure of 22 diseases. Now, what happens in case of Kaushiki dance? Like we have seen in case of the Lalit Marmik dance, and we have seen in case of the Tandem dance, how these two dance forms improve or vibrate the lymphatic vessels in such a manner that in one case lascia is created or softness is created in the mind of the human beings, those who practice Lalit Marmik. And in case of the Tandem dance, it creates manliness, courage, शौर्य, वीरता और साहस का जो समागम होता है हमारे तांडव डांस करने से, वो होता है क्योंकि हमारे जो lymphatic vessels हैं वो वाइब्रेट हो जाते हैं. तो and this is the only exercise according to Sri Anand Murti ji, and we have seen how it is so very beneficial because it vibrates the lymphatic cells, lymphatic vessels. Therefore, this particular exercise is the only exercise which also exercises the brain. There is no other exercise in the world which exercises the brain. Tandava is the only exercise. Now, there are varieties of Tandavas. There are particularly three forms of Tandavas. The Brahma Tandav, the Vishnu Tandav, and the Shiv Tandav. The Shiv Tandav is the most difficult one. And because of Shiv Tandav, a man's life is transformed. So, now we come to the Kaushiki Dance. The Kaushiki Dance, as I said, is a dance form developed by Sri Anand Murti ji to invigorate all the cells of the body. Not only the body cells, which also get vibrated because of the performance of the Kaushiki dance, but also the nerve cells, the nerve fibers, the neurons. So the whole immune system of the body is invigorated, is benefited by the performance of the Kaushiki dance. The Kaushiki dance, as the name indicates, is the one which helps in the development of all the koshas of the body, the cells of the body, the human body cells, the protozoic, the metazoic, and the protoplasmic cells, and also the nerve cells. nerve fibers, that is the neurons in the brain. So these are the three exercises, unique exercises, which are so very popular amongst Ananda Margis who practice Ananda Marg system of sadhana. And they are not only physical exercises, but to a larger extent, they are also mental exercises, or exercises which ultimately develop the body and mind as an integrated unit. Now, further, there are certain dance forms, especially dances, which are very, very beneficial for those who have problems in case of lymphatic system. Now, as we have seen, that lymphatic system is actually connected to our immunity, because lymphoid system exists with in our chest with the thymus gland. Thymus gland is the primary gland where the lymphoid system stays, and it is the thymus gland which during the fetal stage, when the child is there in the embryonic stage in the mother's womb. So it is in the mother's womb that we find that the thymus gland, before the birth of the child, completes all its activity. What is the activity that thymus gland performs? The thymus gland performs the activity by stamping all the cells of the tissues and body. And these cells are stamped as our own cells, as they have been defined, so that they are able to identify between our own cells and those who are foreign intruders. Because of that, the human body, the immunity of the human body is maintained. Now, since these lymphatic vessels, lymphatic cells are there in the tissues of the brain also, so all the problems that are associated with the brain, especially like we have seen that stress is one of the primary causes of all the mental problems, cancer, AIDS, or all other diseases, or other human disease like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, meningitis, or loss of dementia. All these brain diseases are caused because of the poor immunity of the body. And this poor immunity of the body is associated with our lymphatic system. And lymphatic system develops all these qualities when, as suggested, as taught to us by Sri Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar, Sri Ananda Murti ji, that the lymphatic system develops, the lymph grows more when human beings tend to be vegetarian, and their diet contains more and more of green leafy vegetables, especially the stems of the creepers have the maximum amount of chlorophyll. So because of this chlorophyll, the presence of larger amount of chlorophylls catalyzes more and more lymph production. And when there is excess lymph production, the brain gets abundant of the food. The food of the brain is the lymph. There is nothing else that we need for the brain to develop and grow. And therefore, lymph production enhancement is directly related to brain health. When brain is healthy, when will the brain be healthy? When it is contemplating purer thoughts, when it is in the company of good people, when its mind is constantly thinking of greater ideas, beautiful ideas, ideas which do not have any selfish motive in them, ideas which are purer, ideas which are जो उदार विचार हैं, जो सबके कल्याण की भावना से प्रेरित होने वाले विचार हैं. जब इस प्रकार की भावना मनुष्य के मन में होती है, तो हमारा जो ब्रेन सेल्स हैं वो उनकी इम्यूनिटी बढ़ जाती है, क्योंकि लिम्फ का प्रोडक्शन बढ़ता है। यदि आदमी अधिक से अधिक ऐसी जगहों पर जाते हैं जहां बहुत भीड़ भड़का है, वहां पर जहां गंदी बातें हो रही हैं, अथवा जहां लोग जो हैं दुनियावी चीजों में अपने आप को व्यस्त रखते हैं, अपने सेल्फिश मोटिव्स को फुलफिल करने के लिए जाते हैं, जैसे ब्रोदल्स हैं, जो मतलब गंदी जगह हैं जहां पर हमारे समाज की जो कुरीतियां हैं फैल रही हैं, तो उन कुरीतियों को रोकने के प्रयास तो होते नहीं है समाज में। ना हमारी कोई शिक्षा प्रणाली उस प्रकार की, दुर्भाग्य से हमारी शिक्षा प्रणाली हमारे मनुष्य को एक सच्चा इंसान बनने की प्रेरणा नहीं देती है, उसे एक व्यापारी बनने की प्रेरणा जरूर दे देती है। ये प्रेरणा जरूर दे देती है कि वो कैसे पैसा कमा सकता है, लेकिन इस बात की प्रेरणा उसे नहीं देती है वो कैसे एक अच्छा आदमी बने, एक ईमानदार आदमी बने, जो सबके कल्याण की बात सोचे, जिसका अपना सेल्फिश मोटिव कम से कम हो, जिसका अहंकार कम हो। जब तक इस प्रकार की भावना हमारी शिक्षा प्रणाली के माध्यम से हमारे समाज जीवन में नहीं आएगी, जब तक ये नीति वाक्य हमारे जीवन का मुख्य और प्रधान अंग नहीं बन जाता है, जब तक आध्यात्मिकता हमारी सबसे बड़ी बपौती नहीं बन जाती है। इफ वी हैव टू इनहेरिट एनीथिंग इफ फ्रॉम आवर पेरेंट्स, आवर forefathers, and if we have to get any knowledge from our educational system, it is this knowledge, the spiritual knowledge, which alone can improve the quality of our life, improve the health of our brain, and therefore help us get rid of all the so-called diseases that are so much prevalent amongst the population today. And they are increasing. The psychosomatic diseases, the PNS, the neuro diseases, the mental diseases are in the increase. And this increase in mental diseases is being caused because of the stressful environment in which we are living, because human beings do not have a right perspective of life and do not look for the goal of life, which is to realize God or the infinite consciousness in this life. Now, therefore, we find that in this particular context of lymph production, then we have seen that how exercises, especially the asanas, which directly affect our body, health of the body, and those asanas especially which are able to control the propensities or the vrittis of the lower three chakras, the Manipur, Swadhisthana and Mooladhara chakra. तो इन चक्रों को जो नियंत्रित करने वाले हमारे आसन हैं, और ऐसे आसन जो हमारे ऊर्ध्व चक्रों को, विशेष रूप से आज्ञा चक्र को, अपना विशुद्ध चक्र को, और पिट्यूटरी और पिनियल ग्लैंड को, और सहस्त्रार चक्र को जो नियंत्रित करते हैं, अलग अलग तरीके से जब हम इन चक्रों को नियंत्रण करने वाले आसनों की एक्सरसाइजेस सामान्य लोगों में सिखाते हैं, Anand Ma teaches such exercises. And just to give you an idea, the exercises which can be practiced, the asanas which can be practiced for this particular purpose, especially for increasing the formation and flow of lymph, then those asanas are Sarvangasana, both parts of Sarvangasana, both types. Then Matsya Mudra, Matsyendrasana, which is for all the health. Matsyendrasana is for thyroid and parathyroid glands. Then all chakras are affected. Matsya Mudra is affected Vishuddha chakra. And then we have Chakrasana. We have Naukasana. They affect the Manipur chakra. Then Utkat Paschimottasana, which influences the lower three chakras. Then Gaumukhasana, which influences or makes the Mooladhara and Swadhisthana chakra strong. Then Mayurasana, especially for Manipur chakra, and then Vastrikasana for the lower three chakras, and Dirgha Pranam for the lower three chakras, and Padhastasana from Manipur to Agya chakra. All the chakras are benefited by the practice of these. Now, taking into consideration these things, the asana practices and also certain pranayama practices which are taught by Anand Marg for specific diseases, and the dance practices that we have discussed just now, we find that our lymphatic system is benefited. Now, as far as the concept of this lymphatic system is concerned, then we have to also realize that this knowledge of lymph and lymphatic system, as we have discussed in the medical science, it is a very primitive kind of a study as yet, but still people are able to understand as we are forced to understand the importance of the acquired immune deficiency syndrome, the AIDS disease, and the cancer diseases, and we have seen that how lymphoid system is directly related to these things. So their focus is now changing, but still, like Ananda Marga has taught us how these things are very, very important. And then we find that in Ananda Marga, the lymphatic system as the precursor of hormones in the glands. That particular aspect is yet to be appreciated and understood by the medical community, the medical researchers. They are still struggling to understand the importance of this. Now, in Ananda Marga biopsychology, this is a very, very important aspect which is being taught. Similarly, that lymph ultimately is the cream of all that we consume, all that we eat as our food, water, and the electromagnetic radiations that affect our body, all that which affects our human body is ultimately converted into lymph, which is the cream of the human body. And this lymph, when it is properly conserved, properly used by the human body, and also we are able to generate such hormones in the body from the pituitary and pineal glands, especially the serotonin, especially those hormones which ultimately invigorate your not only body but also the mind, which also directly influence human health. Then we can get rid of all the diseases associated with the brain. So this aspect is another very important aspect, and as we have seen that not only the kind of food that we eat, as I said, that more and more of lymph production is possible with more and more of vegetarian diet, especially the green vegetables, and also especially the stems of the creepers, which are full of chlorophyll, and they are the most beneficial things for enhancing lymph production. And also the kind of environment that influences our life. As I said, the environment which we call satsang directly influences lymph formation. So those who want to grow as right human beings, then they will have to take into consideration the influence of the vegetarian diet and also the influence of the good company, meditation, spiritual practices, and also what is known as the positive environment. So we find that the environment plays as a role of a positive catalyst and also as a negative catalyst. So if we have to overcome the negative catalytic effect of the environment, then we must promote positive catalytic effect by way of accepting spiritual practices, the company of those good people who always help us in letting us lose our ahankar, our ego, and also those who are able to develop in us a consciousness of no self. That means a selfless consciousness. They are able to grow in us. So such a company helps us in a positive manner as a positive catalytic agent. So we have to promote such catalytic positive catalytic agents, and this will only possible through doing spiritual practices. Now slowly the people, the scientists of the world have understood that the immune system in our body, that is the lymphoid vessel, the lymphoid system, and the thymus gland, which are the controllers of this immune cells, the T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes, which actually are able to engulf or consume the entire foreign intruders that come into our bloodstream. Those dust particles, viruses or bacteria which can be harmful to our health, then these T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes are the agents through which it is completely removed from the body. And these are the immune cells. So we have to promote the growth of these immune cells. And it is through the brain that we can do it. It is through the brain that the immune system can be made healthier. So that is possible only when abundant flow of lymph, as the nourishment of the nerve cells, brain nerve cells, is available. So the larger the flow of these lymph into the brain, into the nerve cells of the brain, the healthier it becomes. And the healthy brain system affects our immune system, is able to catalyze immunity, improve our immunity against all the external, the foreign intruders to our body. So we find that we have seen that stress is one of the primary causes of many of the diseases, and therefore if we have to grow as healthy people, as healthy citizens, as healthy human society, then we will have to take up to the vegetarian diet, we have to take up to the spiritual practices. There is no alternative to this, and therefore we realize now that the concept that is being advanced by Ananda Marg, जिन आध्यात्मिक साधना की पद्धति, जिस आध्यात्मिक साधना की पद्धति, जिन डांस फॉर्म्स को, जिन नृत्यों को, और जो सारी पूरी व्यवस्था आनंद मार्ग के अंदर जो साधना की पूर्ण श्रृंखला है, पूरी व्यवस्था है, उस व्यवस्था को हम लोग अपने जीवन में अडॉप्ट कर सकते हैं और अपने जीवन को सभी तरह से न केवल रोगों से मुक्त कर सकते हैं, बल्कि एक अच्छे सिटीजन की तरह से, एक अच्छे नागरिक की तरह से हम डेवलप कर सकते हैं, जो सब लोगों के कल्याण के लिए काम करता है, जिसका अपना व्यक्तिगत स्वार्थ जो है वो धीरे धीरे क्षीण हो गया है। और हम लोग देखते हैं कि ह्यूमन क्वालिटीज अगर हमें ग्रो करनी है, अगर मनुष्य के अंदर ह्यूमन क्वालिटीज ग्रो करनी है, तो वो संभव है जब हमारा लिम्फेटिक सिस्टम ग्रो करेगा। एंड एज आई सेड, lymphatic system is the precursor of all the good hormones, all the hormones that are produced in the human body, which are produced by our endocrine glands or the regional subglands. Whatever they are, with the help of a healthy lymphatic system, we can control the hormonal secretion of the glands, and therefore good health can prevail in the society, amongst the human beings and everywhere. We can do this. इसलिए अभी आज ये बहुत बड़ी ज़रूरत है कि हमारी जो बायोसाइकोलॉजी की साइंस है वो अधिक से अधिक लोग इसको समझें और जानें। आशा करता हूँ कि आप सब लोग अपने जीवन में इस नूतन ज्ञान को, इस बायोसाइकोलॉजी के अभिनव ज्ञान को जो आनंद मार्ग के साधक कर रहे हैं और आनंद मार्ग के जो आचार्य और जो सन्यासी हैं, वो बिना किसी फीस के, बिना किसी मूल्य के समाज में इसको विस्तार करने के लिए हमेशा अवेलेबल हैं। आप लोग उनका संपर्क करें और अपने जीवन को धन्य करें, अपने जीवन को सार्थक बनाएं। नमस्कार।